So Jo, today we decided that we will have a Q&A, kind of ask us anything day from the listeners. And we've got a few questions. Do you want to kick them off with?
Sure. Okay, let me just find them. Here they are. Okay, so one of the questions we had was how to best nourish your body in times of stress. So this lady said they're about to move house. She said she already feels like she's in a rut with breakfast and lunches, eating so many eggs that she thinks her kids are about to kill her if she serves them anymore. They're gluten-free, dairy-free, grain-free in their diet, and want to know some simple ways to cook and prepare during this time of intense stress. She says, I need to not crash before the process is over, but I can feel the effect on my body already, and I don't have a lot of time to rest and do things slowly, as of course you don't when you're moving house. It's a pretty full-on time. I remember when we moved to this house, I crashed with my health and I was in bed for days, and my family and friends had to do all the house moving for me. I was so sick.
Wow.
That's a really good community when they take over, move your house for you. So that was pretty good. But yes, I was thinking about this lady's question. I thought, the biggest thing, the biggest piece of advice I would say is to ask for help. Get your friends and family on board. And I've got some ideas for recipes and things to make, but I know for me when I'm moving house, it's so full on that if you can just get the support of family and friends, it makes such a big difference. And it may only be someone makes a meal for you or takes the kids and looks after them while you do some work or something like that. Even if you have to, ask someone if they'll make some recipes for you and pay them. Like, it's worth it. Like, get a few things that can be made in bulk, and get them to make a double batch or triple batch, and then get stuff in the freezer so that you've at least got some meals that you can grab out when you need them, or some baking or something that will help. So I thought of really when we're really under the pump, we go to really simple meals. When I'm really busy and I don't have any help, we pretty much eat meat and veggie meals, don't you, Foo?
Yes, absolutely.
Just so simple. I'll just get out like a big piece of fish that'll feed the whole family with, a piece each, and then do one big pot of veggies, and I'll like coat the fish in egg and tapioca or almond meal or whatever, and then just fry it in a little bit of olive oil. And meanwhile, the veggies are cooking, and I just layer the veggies. So I'll just put in like potato, sweet potato, pumpkin, all the hard veggies on the bottom, and then peas and broccoli and cauliflower and whatever on top. And then the water just covers the hard veggies and the rest steams. And so it's all in one pot, and you've just got your meat and veggies. So that's sort of my go-to meal when I'm really full on. Or else I'll do a roast with heaps of roast veggies so that you've got, like, get a really big roast and do meat and veggies that way. Just roast it all, and then the leftovers are fine cold. You don't even have to warm them up. Cold roast veggies and cold roast meat, unless it's cold weather. We do burger bowls, so I'll just get plain beef mince and just make patties out of that, make burgers out of that, and fry them up with a bit of salt and pepper, and then just grab anything out of the fridge that I can find. So carrots, lettuce, tomato, sauerkraut, homemade mayo, whatever you've got in there, boiled eggs if they're not too sick of eggs, and just put it all out on the table, and everyone just chucks it in a bowl, and we call it burger bowls. And you can also do that with sausages, like just grain-free, gluten-free sausages, and make extra because they're fine cold as well. So, I'll do things at breakfast where I'll make a big pot of something at breakfast time that will also be fine at lunch. So always try and make a bigger batch so that you've got it for 2 meals if possible. And don't worry about this when you're really stretched for time. You just have to buy things sometimes. So just get your best options that you can. Like sometimes I'll go and buy a roast chicken if I absolutely have to. I know it's not the best option, but if that's all you can do at the time, roast chicken and salad. or I'll go and get like coconut yogurt, fruit, and some grain-free or gluten-free granola, and that is quite filling for snacks. Have that on hand. You can even buy good quality dips if you just check the ingredients, see if you can find some that don't have any additives, and dips and veggie sticks for snacks. So that's a few of my ideas for. Do you have any? Oh, and Russian custard, because this lady was saying that she needs to keep her energy up. So I would definitely recommend Russian custard. That is so good.
So one of the things that I would think about during times of stress is broth. I feel broth is an extremely calming kind of food. And
definitely.
If you're stressing out, you want something that calms you down. So having frozen broth cubes in your freezer where you can just pour some boiling water on top. If it's concentrated, you just add a bit of salt and you drink that. That will give you some really good nourishment and calm you down. So you're not going to get overwhelmed when the truck guy is late, or someone's scratched the beautiful table or something like that. So it allows you to go through that period of stress a little bit more gracefully. Also have some herbal support like chamomile as well. I think that's really, really good. If you worry about making broth beforehand, you can always buy some broth, like we sell meadow and marrow bone broth on our shop, which is a concentrate. You just grab a teaspoon out of that, put it in the cup, mix in some hot water and some salt, and you've got a cup of broth, which is really, really good. Jo, as you were saying, like things that go in the oven that roast are really great because you just put a big piece of meat in there and go about your day. One thing that we did was we sort of, because we wanted to pack the kitchen, so we only kept the amount of knives, forks, and spoons and bowls that we were going to need during the move as well. So maybe one of those things is to think about meals that will fit into
a roasting dish.
So yeah, that's my tip here.
One pot meals. There's quite a few one pot meals in life-changing food, but yeah, it's just when you don't want to take the time to think about a new recipe. I completely understand that you just stick to really basic stuff. Smoothies I thought of too. That's a good way to fill up and get some energy. So you can add some coconut oil and coconut cream and some good fats and egg yolks to your smoothies and just get a lot of nutrient-dense foods in there. It's kind of like a meal on the run, isn't it? It's a good smoothie.
Yeah, and you can have that nice mix of sugars and fats in there that allow you to keep going and give you that good burst of energy when you need it and the sustained energy for the rest of the few hours that come afterwards, which is really good.
I thought of another thing. When my husband was traveling over in WA, I got Primal Alternatives to deliver some breads and pastry dough and stuff so that he would have easy gluten-free, grain-free breads. And that's something... Yeah, and even their fruit toast, if you cut that up and then have it like French toast, dipped in the egg and fried for breakfast, that's quite filling and it bulks it out. That's really nice. And also the pastry can be just made into flatbread really quickly and fried in a pan.
Lunch today.
Perfect.
I just grated some halloumi and put some dukkha on top and I baked it, and that was my lunch.
Oh, yum.
It's good.
And there was another lady who commented under that and said that this is her issue too, the stressful situation with a sick son and so she has a fussy 5-year-old who's not wanting to eat meat and vegetables, and she's also supporting a sick brother, and she's supposed to be gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and she has medical issues. So that's so overwhelming, and all of those meal ideas that are super quick will help. But if you've got a child that's extremely fussy, as we've mentioned before, that's definitely a gut health thing, but not everybody can jump into a really healing diet. So we do have that top tips document that we wrote down 20 things that we think are great ways to start heading towards a healthier diet, but much more simply than just changing your whole diet. And they can find that. Do we have a link for that, Fuad, or just go to the GAPS program?
Yep, that's on the gaps.quirkycooking.com.au.
Yeah, it's the free download, so just scroll down. But do you have some tips for kids who don't want to eat meat and veggies, Foo?
Yeah. I think just dealing with the underlying issues it's one of those things with kids who don't eat vegetables. It's really a sign of dysbiosis in the gut and also lifelong habits. So these things can't change overnight. But we know, for instance, with Emma's kids, when she put them on GAPS, they only used to eat white food.
Yeah.
And now they fight over the broccoli.
Yeah. They ask for Brussels sprouts at the shops, and people look at them strangely.
And like she goes, "What would you like today? Would you like with your meat? Would you like some Brussels sprouts or some broccoli or cauliflower?" And they're like, "All of that. We want all of that." Really cool.
But there is some. It depends if you've got a child who's got sensory issues. There's some great OTs, occupational therapists that are also GAPS practitioners. That there's one up here where I live who helps families get their kids eating well, and she uses the occupational therapy and the GAPS and works them into a healthier diet. So if you need professional help, contact us and we can send you her link, because it's just something that sometimes feels overwhelming and you need someone to sort of guide you along with it.
Yeah, great.
Okay, next question.
What gluten-free recipes would you suggest for lunches that are low calorie and super healthy? Getting sick of the bowls and salad trends and trying to keep it to 500 calories. Thanks. So that's a very interesting question, and I would like to understand why the calories are being kept low.
Here we go. She's answered me. She said she's not trying to lose weight, more to maintain a healthy weight. Then when the occasion calls for a treat, you can without feeling too guilty. I'm also new to celiac and found eating the gluten-free bread and other gluten-free foods I put on weight, for sure, because it's high sugar, that gluten-free breads generally, the bought stuff anyway. So do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So what I find is 500 calories is not an everyday kind of diet. So it's definitely almost like a fasting diet. You need maybe 3 to 4 times that much food to feel satiated. You don't want to have it long term because you'll risk deficiencies. You're not getting enough food into your body. 500 calories is something that's definitely helpful to do on occasion for a set period of time. It's not this whole thing around the guilt of eating a treat is something that you need to evaluate psychologically as well. The body shouldn't be paying the price for the way that you view food. The body should be nourished and should be really looked after, you would look after a child and you would look after a pet or something like that. It's not something to deprive and only allow to eat a treat when you feel like, now I've earned the treat or something like that. So the equation isn't between treat food and, on the other hand, deprivation. Most of your food should be nourishing, healthful, and healthful, nourishing food definitely is not food that makes you put on weight, because if it does, it might only be temporary for people who need to put on weight. It's going back to the basics of whole foods and understanding how food actually works within the body. So whole foods are the healthful way to go. If you're eating a gluten-free diet and you're putting on weight because of all the gluten-free ingredients that they use to put, to make this bread, and you look at it and there's 25 ingredients, you can't pronounce half of them. The ones that are refined and you don't know, you usually wouldn't eat day to day, these are the ones that make you put on the weight. The sugars, the preservatives, the highly refined starch, the maltodextrin, the emulsifiers, the additives, the flavor enhancers, the texture enhancers. All these things are...
And then you've got the vegetable oils in all those gluten-free bought breads, pretty much all of them.
That's right.
Not Primal Alternative.
But if you take away the caloric equation, well, if let's say we say 500 calories worth of that gluten-free bread or 1,000 calories worth of that gluten-free bread, and let's say even though on paper it might look nutritionally balanced, But on the other hand, you have 1,000 calories worth of meat and vegetables cooked in ghee, and you have a little bit of olive oil with your salad, and you've got the same kind of calories. The food that is whole food is what your body needs and requires to be healthy. And
you should just give the example of your own story just quickly, because some people may not have heard.
Yeah, so I was 128 kilos at my peak. I struggled with my weight all the time. I used to have to go to 500 calories to starve myself in order to lose weight. That was my approach. And that was a very difficult time in my life. And it was until I was 31 years old, really, that I kept going on this yo-yo dieting approach. So I would deprive myself and I would starve and I would lose weight. And then I would start eating what I thought was normal again and healthy. And then before I knew it, 6 months or a year went by with me not being able to really control my food and what goes into my body. And I would feel terrible health-wise. I'll get on the scales, look at myself, and I've gone back to the weight I was before, and there's extra weight. And that's because my foundation just was not steeped in the whole food principles. So whole foods are not a fad. They're not. Fad diets could be, raw vegan. That to me is a fad diet. Atkins is a fad diet. These diets, like even what's called that guy, Ornish diet. That's a fad diet because they're not steeped into ancestral whole food principles. So they might branch out.
They haven't been around for thousands of years eating that way.
Right.
There's nobody's eaten that way in the past.
No. Well, for instance, we don't have any raw vegan traditions or cultures. This is a very, very new kind of diet that we started seeing in the 1800s, and it's gaining momentum now. But that still sits within the whole food spectrum. And even if and I would much rather a human being eat a whole food diet that is raw vegan.
Yeah.
Diet day to day to 500 calories and eating foods that aren't whole food. Yeah. So it goes on a spectrum. Like the best way to eat is to eat an omnivorous diet based on ancestral traditions. Mm-hmm. And working with the body with where it's at. So like if you've got gluten sensitivities and things like that, it means that you're dealing with gut issues and a system that has been really assaulted by the modern lifestyle and environmental chemicals and additives in the food and a refined diet. So definitely there's time that's required to recover from that. And the body needs a transition into health, and it needs to take the time that you take to understand the principles, start knowing how to apply them to your body, renegotiate your ideas towards your body, like just reset your view, because in a whole foods paradigm, there's really no need for deprivation and going down to a 500 calorie diet. Yeah. So what happened to me is I went into a whole food diet and I started eating a low carb paleo diet, and I was eating maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, just because I was eating so much butter and cheeses and things like that. And my appetite quickly regulated to a normal amount, so that my body just knew how much it needed. But putting all those calories in my body on paper should have made me put on so much weight. But that's from the calories in, calories out perspective. Yep. That model is broken. It doesn't work. That's not how the body works. It's not about calories in, calories out. The body doesn't have a calorie counter where it says, okay, this many have come in, this many have, therefore, it doesn't work in that way. So the body has a variable metabolism. And if you put more calories into it, it's going to try to increase the metabolism to burn those calories. And if you're putting the right kind of calories in there, then it can burn them more efficiently than others. So fat calories, after your body has made the switch to burn fat, become really efficient at burning. Mm-hmm. Your body doesn't need to store them. It uses them for energy. You feel really good. Your brain's working. Your energy is high. You can move. You can run. You can talk. You can do all that kind of stuff by eating a normal caloric intake that is suitable for your body. if you're eating a predominantly carbohydrate-based diet and it's mostly refined carbohydrates, and you've had damage in your body because for your entire life you've been eating according, say, to the food pyramid or junk food or refined foods or takeaways and things like that, then these foods have become problematic for you. And even the healthful version of carbs may need to be restricted for a while for you to come back to health. And that's where something like a low-carb paleo or a GAPS diet really do really well. They introduce these things early on, later in the later stages of the diet. They give your body a break from fibers and refined starches so that your gut can heal and your metabolism can regulate, and your body starts sending the correct signals for you to eat.
I think most people, when they first swap over to gluten-free, make the same, can I say mistake? Because I did it, of just trying to swap everything that they usually would have eaten that had wheat in it to try and swap it to a gluten-free version. And so you get caught up in this cycle of constantly either buying packaged gluten-free, starchy, sugary foods, which honestly, the sugar in those gluten-free baked goods in the shops is crazy. The sugar, the amount of sugars and carbs, or trying to bake everything yourself, which becomes stressful because it's a lot of work, and you're trying to make breads and biscuits and scones and pies and everything so that everyone in the family still has the same food they're used to. And I did that for a while, and it was kind of hard at first because I was spending so much time in the kitchen, and my health did not improve a lot because I was still having those really hard to digest foods. But once we went on to the GAPS diet and just pulled right back away from baking and went on to just really simple, meats and veggies and fish and eggs and a little bit of fruit and nuts and seeds and all of that kind of thing, it really changed our health. And later we added it back in a little bit of baking, but not as much as, like, I grew up every day, Mum was baking every day. There was cakes or biscuits or slice or something coming out of the oven, and I thought that was the norm. And we had bread every day. So once I pulled back from that and realized, hey, we don't actually need bread. It could be a now and then treat, and we don't need baking every day. It changed the way we ate, and we became a lot healthier. And you fill up more with vegetables and things like that.
Like my dad, when I talk to him about this stuff, he goes, what am I going to eat my eggs with if I don't have bread?
What am I going to eat my eggs with?
Like he just can't
habit.
Like eating something without bread. I've been like that for 7 years now. I don't have bread. Like, I love having a really good, high quality, like primal alternative or gluten-free.
Free dough.
That stuff is amazing, but even for me, that's like an occasional treat. And, when it comes to gluten-free, dairy-free food, if you want my opinion, because the question is saying what gluten-free recipes would you suggest for lunches that are low-cal and super healthy, I would say if your gut's fine, as much vegetables with like a beautiful olive oil dressing that you can have, and some protein, something like that.
It doesn't have to be raw either. I think people think healthy equals raw. No, and I know when I was trying to heal, my naturopath I said to him, I suppose you want me to eat a heap of salads? And he said, no, that's the worst thing you can do at the moment. When you're healing, you need cooked vegetables. It's much easier to digest. And I was like, oh. And once we healed, then we tried to bring in, like, have a good amount of raw and cooked and fermented veggies in your diet so that you've got that mixture.
Yeah, I find if the meal is lowish carb enough, then you can have really good healthy fats in there, like avocados, some seeds, not too many of those, some natural fats, like olive oil dressing, something like that. And you don't have to count the calories of those.
Yeah.
So you just
homemade mayonnaise, pile it on. Ooh, yum.
A bit of high quality cheese or something like that if you can tolerate dairy.
I think we should answer this next one because it's similar. Why do we put on weight so easily if we're eating paleo, GAPS, etc.? Why would someone put on weight easily.
I love it because it says, this is the question, and but listen, it says why we put on weight so easily, even if we're eating paleo / gaps, etc. Full stop. It drives my nuts.
I think she means me.
And she doesn't mean me, but I think that was like a Freudian slip, which self-reveals the fact that maybe you're eating too many nuts. And it's like it's the nuts. And I think quite often, just exactly as Jo said, like you move away from bread and you just go like, oh, well, I can't have banana bread, or I'm going to make almond meal banana bread. I can't have toast, I'm going to have almond meal toast. I can't have this, I'm going to have almond meal that. And just almond meal becomes your new flour.
Yeah.
Almonds and nuts are just incredibly nutrient-dense foods that are usually autumnal. And they're foods that are used for store, like we would store and eat throughout the winter.
Like a squirrel.
That's right. Like a squirrel. And we use them to sustain us because they've got this beautiful amount of fat and carbohydrates and proteins in them, and they just sustain the body really, really well. But these are not foods like I buy 10 kilos of almond meal and I put them in the cupboard. I can do that. But for me to actually get almond meal, like 10 kilos, harvest it from wild tree, buy it and mill it and get 10 kilos worth from my
Take you 10 years.
That's what my tribes, like that's what everyone would have put together. It's just not, there's not enough nuts to go around really that in the way that we consume them now. The only reason why we have nuts so widely available and so affordable is because of monocultures and the ability to farm them and harvest them in abundance. Our bodies and the biology did not expect that much nuts. So I think that's a big deal. I think nuts are specifically fattening. I think macadamia is all right. Like that one's a lower carb kind of nut. That does all right. But have a look at how much carbs are, say, in cashew nuts. It's just a really large amount of carbs. And carbs transform into sugar in the body. They spike your insulin when bundled with like a fat like that as well. Like if you're having too much, then the body will tend to put on weight.
And especially if you're also dairy free and you're having all the nut milks, the nut butters, the nut whatever's, creams, it becomes way too much. And once again, our advice would be simplify your diet, pull it back, mostly vegetables, some protein, and keep the nuts and seeds and the baking and the sweets, keep them minimal.
Yeah.
We're not saying don't ever have them because we all need a treat now and then, and make it a nutrient-dense treat when you have it, but don't overdo it.
Yeah, there's the joy factor in food that you can't disregard at all. I mean, we have been cooking or creating these incredible things now, and it's beautiful to be able to have them and enjoy them as long as they're made from good quality ingredients. But you really have to honor the biology of your body that expects a wild environment which has seasons and has if you were living in an environment that you'd know which leafy greens you'd harvest, which berries you'd harvest and when, and which root vegetables you'd harvest. And you'd see that the majority of what you ate was going to be meat and eggs and all sorts of different types of animals, and then you'd be foraging for the root vegetables and the leafy greens and cooking those. But most of the food hunter-gatherer would rely on would be those three. It'll be vegetable matter and roots and meats. And if you keep it like that for yourself as well, then you do really, really well.
And it's funny, we were mentioning before with when you change to a gluten-free diet, you go for all the bought gluten-free breads and things at first. When people go onto a paleo diet, they often get really into making all the raw cakes and the desserts and things that are paleo, and they're amazing and delicious, but I'm pretty sure they're not traditional paleo food.
No.
But, it's just moderation. especially if you.
He's yesterday, he got some acorns, and they roasted them, and they put them in a bag, and they leached them in the river for 2 days to get rid of the tannins. And these are the bitter compounds in acorns, which quite prevalent in things like almonds as well. But until we selected for the almonds that are sweeter, and eventually bred a type of almond that was lower in those anti-nutrients. But what he did then is he got this flour and he put it in a basket, and then got some rocks from the fire and threw them in with the nut flour that's already soaked. And then the hot rock started cooking the meal, and it turned into this brown sludgy porridge thing. And they enjoyed it. They said it tasted all right, but like the amount of work that goes into that, starchy nut preparations, it's a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah.
One of the other things that Fuad and I were talking about earlier before the podcast was when we start to try and eat a healthier diet and we're still gaining weight or having trouble with weight, sometimes it can be to do with stress and being overtired, exhausted. Did you want to mention anything about that?
Yeah, look, I still experience weight gain. So this is not something that even I'm immune to. When I go through periods of adrenal stress and my cortisol is elevated, I can't sleep, I'm feeling exhausted. For one thing, my ability to control my diet drops. I'm not as able to be as
you need comfort food.
You do, yeah. And that's normal. But I think we have to look at the stress hormones in the body. So things like adrenaline and cortisol, and the way that the role that they play in metabolism and weight gain. And we really want our cortisol levels to be low, because that's the stress hormone. If it's high, we put in a fight or flight response, and the body is not really happy to look after itself during fight or flight. It just does it when it's in rest and digest. So the body needs to go into a time of rest in order to heal itself, in order to control its weight and its appetite correctly. So I'm imagining, there's this question here, because it says, how do you reduce visceral stomach fat in menopausal women despite having an extremely healthy diet and maintaining a regular exercise program? So I know menopause is a difficult time for women as well. A lot of women welcome it, and they're very, very happy to be going through that kind of transition into a new phase of life, and they deal with it in a very positive way. And a lot of women as well deal with it in a way that's very difficult, and they feel a sense of loss that comes with it. Both are valid ways of being with yourself. I'm not saying one is more correct than the other. But when you're going through menopause and you're feeling a lot of stress because of that, then you are already in a hormonally difficult and challenging time. And then the stress on top of it may add to the hormonal imbalance. So cortisol may start coming up and up as well. So visceral fat, which is the fat that's behind the muscles, and this in particular is visceral stomach fat. This one is, if you want to reduce it, I think you have to look holistically at your stress management as well. So there may be, for instance, you may be exercising too much, and you might have to cut back on exercise in order to reduce the cortisol, and having the more types of exercises that take you out of fight or flight and put you in a relaxed way. So, the stretching and Pilates.
Walking in nature and swimming. And
that's right. So I would start there. And I think, during that time, really be with your body and honor it. And it's going through so much change. And if it's trying to find a way for it to come to a homeostasis and it's going through some changes, during that time, I think kindness is imperative, and not to try to force it to behave in a certain way when it's already going through so much. Just, the kinder that we are to our body through periods of transition, the better, I think. But it might not be helpful for you, this answer, but I hope it is.
We do have, so Elise, who works with us with the GAPS program, she has I think it's a webinar or something she did recently that may help with all of these questions on gaining weight during a healing diet, and why and how to work gently with your body to heal and then work on losing the weight. Because one of the things that we've learned is that when you have toxins stored in the body, they're stored in the fat, and you need to slowly detox the body with a healing diet, and then you can start working on losing the weight if you've got that kind of weight. But Elise will explain it properly, so I might just put the link to that in the show notes for people who want to look into this further, and then we can move on to another question.
What's the next one, Jo?
Okay, where's the best place to find quick, easy and nutrient-dense recipes without heaps of ingredients? Dun, dun, dun. Life-changing food. That's what I think.
All right, so Life-Changing Food is our cookbook that Jo and I got released in April last year. It's got 128 recipes that are just delicious and nourishing, and it's exactly what you want. Simple and quick and easy. The new book will also be similar, but you'll have to wait till May.
Okay. Someone said they'd love to know what our favourite sized pans, pots, Dutch ovens, casserole dishes, what we use in our kitchen. That's quite a good question, actually, because I've had to look it up a few times myself in the early days, looking up online to see what other people used. Trying to stock my kitchen with good non-toxic cookware, and finding, like, you don't want to end up with kitchen cupboards that every time you open them everything falls out. You've got so much rubbish in there and most of it is not very usable or it's not good quality. So just having those few good quality pieces and clearing out your kitchen cupboards can make a difference. So do you want to talk about what you love, Foo?
Yeah, sure. I love Solid Techniques pans.
Ooh.
I used to use the 26 centimeter one exclusively when I had an electric and an induction cooktop. My cooktop had like small induction plates. I don't know how they behave on the larger ones. Maybe they're better. The larger ones may be better on like the larger pans, like the 30 centimeter pan, may be better on the larger induction plates. But I found that for the size that I had, the smaller 26 centimeter pan did well. It was the better one between the two. But since I moved to gas cooking, the 30 centimeter frying pan or the skillet is the one I use because it's bigger for the family, and I prefer that for the bigger meals. But when I'm cooking eggs, I'll still use the 26 centimeter one. And when it comes to pans and when it comes to pots, I have a really good pressure cooker, which I love, like a large pressure cooker. I don't know how large it is, but my mom used to use a pressure cooker all the time.
So did mine, the old-fashioned ones.
Yeah, and I've been using it a lot to make broths. So I'll just make my broths within a few hours. They'll be done, and they'll be really gelatinous and really great tasting. So a pressure cooker is a good investment. You can get like stainless steel ones. That's, I think, the norm when it comes to pressure cookers.
Okay.
They're really good. And Jo, you remember the size of the Dutch oven that I had?
Yeah.
What size was it?
Oh, hang on. It's 6 litre. Yeah, we both got the same one. It's a 6 litre cast iron enamelled one. My favourite is Le Creuset, but we did get, what's the brand that we got? I've had both. My favourite is definitely Le Creuset. But if you can't afford that, you can go to Chasseur, I think it is.
Chasseur, yeah.
But also, don't forget, Solid Techniques have the new Noni Dutch oven, which is 6 litre. I can't wait to try that one. I haven't got that yet. But it's stainless steel, a good heavy stainless steel with no nipple, so it's very safe and also conducts heat really well.
Yeah.
And it's it's got the skillet lid, I believe. I think, that you can use on the stove as a skillet as well. And you don't need to season those ones. They're just beautiful stainless steel and they don't stick. I use the Solid Techniques 35 centimetre bigger skillet a lot.
Yeah.
I meant to post some photos this morning. I'll try and do it this afternoon. This morning I was cooking coconut flour pancakes and my biggest skillet is seasoned so well now. The pancakes just turn out so beautifully. And people often ask,
they don't make them anymore, do they?
Yeah, the biggest skillet they do. It's the one we've got on the website. Yeah, beautiful with the 2 handles. So that one I love. If you've got a big family, or if you want to do things like pancakes and steak or chops, or things that you want a flat surface, that one or the 30 centimetre Solid Techniques skillet, they're both great. And they do have woks and things, but I mostly use the big frying pan, even for stir fries. I just do everything in there.
So that's the 35 centimetre biggest.
Yeah, 35. Yeah. And I had a 30 as well. I think I gave that one to you, and that one's really good as well. I really love their noni saucepans as well. They do cost a lot, but they're so worth the money if you can save up for one, and it has a skillet lid. I use the big 6 litre Chasseur pot as well. And let me think, what else do I use? People often ask about slow cookers. If you're looking for a slow cooker, most of the slow cookers have a ceramic pot. And you just have to be aware that they can have varying levels of lead in them, or they will have varying levels of lead in them. From the research... No, I don't know. It's in the glazes. From the research that Alex Stewart's done from Low Tox Life, she says the what are they called? Cuisine slow cookers have the least lead. So I bought one of those, but I just have to warn you, if you do buy one, they cook slower than some of the others. So you just have to play with recipes a little and sometimes cook it for a longer time. So, yeah, slow cookers, I really don't use mine a lot, to tell the truth. I use my my big pots on the stove and just turn it down really low. And Fuad and I've got Falcon ovens, which we love, and the gas turns off automatically if the fire goes out. So I just put it on really low and I don't worry about it, going out or anything. So that's sort of what I use for a slow cooker. Yeah.
Great.
Cool. All right. Do you want to ask another one of the questions, Foo?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on traditional sourdough made with culture, flour, water, and salt? We've covered this question a few times before, I think, but worth revisiting. So sourdough is one of those foods that, if prepared well, could be healthful. So a traditionally fermented sourdough that is, fermented for 48 hours, and the grains are organic, and the ferment is not like a yeast ferment. It's a wild ferment from a sourdough ferment, and the grain is milled through stone grinding rather than through fine milling machines. It could be okay to eat. We did an interview with Dr. Tom O'Brien around gluten, and his opinion is that gluten, no matter where it's come from or how it's been prepared, is problematic. Mm-hmm. Now, that's definitely, there's a case to argue there, but looking at the work of someone, say, like Dr. Weston Price, who traveled around and saw traditional cultures around the world, and some of them were eating traditionally fermented sourdough, and they were healthy and they did fine. They they were capable of managing. They didn't have the problems that we have these days with gluten. The problem is, if you want to be eating gluten, then your system needs to be able to handle it, because it's quite a difficult substance to digest. And the older varieties are easier to digest, so definitely go for anything like kamut or khorasan and spelt, rather than a new type of wheat. But even those, most of us in the civilized world are so damaged in our systems and our biology that we are unable to process this food in a way that is healthful, and it will go into our bloodstream and elicit an immune response. That's Dr. Tom O'Brien's view on gluten. So it's a matter of personal or individual tolerance, and it's something that you would want to look at how your body would react, so you can understand your individual response to it. And what you would do is you would get off the gluten completely for a couple of weeks, and then you will eat some sourdough and see how you feel. And if you feel like nothing's happened, then maybe monitor yourself. Quite often, a lot of people who eliminate gluten and get it out of their system, they will experience weight loss because the inflammation in the body has decreased. Increased mental clarity will come because the brain's working better without the inflammation. The energy levels are up. Skin issues may resolve or decrease. Hay fever or allergy issues may decrease as well.
Eczema.
Pardon?
Eczema is often worse with gluten.
So it's one of those things where it's become such a problem that for a lot of people, it's not even worth the experiment. But if it's something that you're intent on having and you want to have them once in a while, just see your individual response to it.
Yeah. Maybe you've mentioned Dr. Weston A. Price. The next question is, do you have any healing diets for pregnancy and breastfeeding? And I think that's a good place to continue the conversation about Weston A. Price and what they suggest.
Yeah, so Dr. Price was a dentist who traveled around the world in the 1900s, the early 1900s, and he was told that people who have issues with their teeth, like a lot of cavities and crowded teeth, that these problems weren't there in the uncivilized world. So he went around looking at traditional cultures around the world to see what their teeth looked like. And he discovered that these people were eating a completely whole food diet, properly prepared grains and legumes, and they had their knowledge around food was steeped in traditional wisdom. And that allowed them to eat things in a very, very healthy way, which our civilized selves couldn't, because we lost contact with these traditions. And he found that a lot of these cultures had specific foods that they looked at for women who were planning to become pregnant, are pregnant, or were breastfeeding. And if you go to the the Weston A. Price Foundation website, just look up Weston A. Price here. I think that's what it's Weston A. Price pregnancy guidelines, and you'll have a page which is dedicated for the diet of pregnant and nursing mothers. So it's all there. But one of the the things that you see is they'll talk about cod liver oil, whole milk that is preferably raw from pasture-fed cows, but that is legal for you in your place of residence.
Or if you have a cow.
But also, it has to be legal, Jo.
Can't you drink milk from your own cow?
I don't know.
I think you can. You just can't sell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a cow, great. Fruit, butter, 2 or more eggs daily, preferably from pastured chickens. Additional egg yolks daily, added smoothies, salad dressing, scrambled eggs. 3 to 4 ounces of fresh liver once or twice a week. Fresh seafood 2 to 4 times a week. Fresh beef or lamb daily, always consumed with the fat. Oily fish or lard daily for vitamin D. 2 tablespoons of coconut oil daily used in cooking or smoothies, lacto-fermented condiments and beverages, bone broths used in soups, stews, and sauces, and soaked whole grains. So if you're going to have whole grains, you've got to soak them, fresh vegetables and fruits. And what they say to avoid is trans fatty acids, junk foods, commercial fried foods, sugar, white flour, soft drinks, caffeine, alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs, even prescription drugs. That's from the Western Aid Prize Foundation. But I really love them. So, yeah. But they say cod liver oil contains substantial levels of omega-3 EPA. This is a warning, which can cause numerous health problems such as hemorrhaging during the birth process if not balanced by arachidonic acid, ARA, and omega-6 fatty acids found in liver, egg yolks, and meat fat. Please do not add cod liver oil to a diet that's deficient in these important animal foods. It is important to follow our diet for pregnant mothers in its entirety, not just selected parts of it. So that's the disclaimer there. I hope that helps. But have a look at Western Aid Prize Diet for Pregnant and Nursing Mothers, and you'll come to that page.
Yes. Well, we're running out of time. Should we choose one more, and then we'll have to keep the rest for another day, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of really big ones that would be. You choose. I don't know. There's so many. Have a look. What do you think?
Okay. I don't know.
I would like to. Do you want to discuss this one about the colitis and leaky gut?
I can't see it. Where is it?
Further down.
Further down.
After the. Pardon?
Do you want to read it?
Yes. Okay. So this person says, I have colitis. They say a leaky gut. I've been following a plant-based diet for the last few days, which has been beans, lentils, brown rice, quinoa, pumpkin, vegetables. My gut is so sore. Plant-based say that meat and oils cause an inflamed gut. I don't know which way to go. I want to eat more veg and have recipes that are plant-based, so I'm not overdoing it with meats and fats. Very confused at the moment. Why does meat cause inflammation? What's your advice? I've had a test done. I have no parasites, yeast, or any other things. There were cancer markers, but they said it could be inflammation. I'm having it checked next week with a colonoscopy. My skin has broken out in so many pimples. I went off my tablets for inflammation. Maybe that's part of the reason anyway. Any ideas? So obviously this is something for a practitioner would be really helpful, but I think there's just a few things in here that are really important that people should know about leaky gut. So I'd butt in whenever you're ready, but go ahead.
Let's break it down bit by bit.
Yes.
So, colitis and leaky gut, yeah. Mm-hmm. But then the advice that person has been given is to go on a plant-based diet, and the idea that circulates in the mainstream is that meat and fats cause inflammation. So if you go on a vegetarian diet, then you can reduce your inflammation and it'll cure all your illnesses. The problem with this kind of thinking is, firstly, when someone goes on a plant-based diet, the foods that they start consuming isn't particularly a wide array of plants. It's a wide array of grains and legumes. So that becomes what they eat. And grains, legumes, and seeds, nuts, and things like that, although nutritious in their profile, are the reproductive part of the plant. And this is the place where most of the toxins are concentrated in the plant. That makes sense because the plant needs to defend its DNA in order to reproduce, so it will put as much poison as it can into the grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. So if you have a problem with leaky gut and your digestive tract is inflamed already, and you're eating all these inflammatory foods, then your gut is going to become really sore, which or the message said, my gut is so sore.
Yeah.
So that's to be expected.
Yeah.
And plant-based say that meat, oil cause an inflamed gut. I'm just reading here as it's written. So I'm guessing he is a she or she?
I think it's a he. Sorry, I'll go back and have a look.
This person is saying that, I'm guessing.
No, sorry, she, sorry.
She might be saying that people who promote plant-based foods say that meats, oils cause an inflamed gut. Yes, it's true. Meat and oils cause an inflamed gut if the oils are industrialized oils and they come from machinery, and chemical extraction processes, and if the meats are low grade and come from animals that have been eating a grain-based diet, typically genetically modified, and these animals have been kept in close proximity, so they've been injected with hormones and antibiotics, and then that meat has been taken and stored in strange ways and then churned into a paste with the addition of additives and flours and starches and bad oils and stabilizers and thickeners and gums and additives and texture enhancers and turned into a processed meat. Yes, meat and oils cause an inflamed gut. It's true. That does not apply to high quality fresh meats and high quality organic traditional oils. It does not apply to them. So I would say it's all about quality, and you can't really compare those two things that I just mentioned now. So from my experience with the GAPS diet and your experience as well, Jo, we've seen that the GAPS diet will remove all the fibrous foods to start off with, because the fibers and things like beans and lentils, brown rice and quinoa, they're very difficult to digest for someone with a leaky gut to start off with. So GAPS will remove those, and then they will introduce broths or meat stocks and egg yolks and soft cooked pumpkins and soft cooked leafy green vegetables and cruciferous vegetables with the least amount of fiber in them. So let's say it's broccoli, you'll be eating the florets and not the stalks, because the stalks have more fiber. And the idea there is that plant fibers are going to be inflammatory for a leaky gut, and it works. You get off these fibers, you get off the grains and the legumes, and you stick to those types of foods, and the body starts responding by rebuilding the intestinal walls, fixing the leaky gut, and reducing the inflammation.
We did a whole podcast on this with Empowered Sustenance. So she had colitis from a young age, really bad. And she used just full GAPS and healed, and just really working on those nourishing, healing foods. And so that's episode 74. I'll link to that one as well in the notes.
Yeah, great. So it can be healed. A lot of people in our online gut health program deal with leaky gut, pretty much all of them dealing with leaky gut. And the way to go is we look at Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride's work, and we've seen it work. It's worked for us, and it's amazing. So we recommend that you have a look at the GAPS diet and see how you go.
And also, Dr. Natasha does have a really good book on a vegetarian diet and how that helps and when it's not a good idea. And one of the times it's not a good idea is when you're healing a leaky gut. It's great for cleansing as a short-term diet, but she recommends that for healing the gut, you need the, like Fuad said, the meat stocks and things like that. So, yeah, a lot of the other things like the pimples and things like that's just another sign of gut dysbiosis. Inflammation. Sore tummy,
leaky gut, and colitis, and you probably have an overgrowth of bacteria that's preferentially eating sugar, and when you're having that much grain come into your system, then the inflammation caused by that bacteria is just going to be so high that your body really can't handle it.
Do you want to talk about the legume side of things just quickly as well? Because legumes are really healthy, but for a while there you may not be able to cope with them.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like most natural foods, it comes down to the preparation of them. So legumes let's say chickpeas, and lentils. They're some of the most benign legumes there.
Uh-oh, he's going to talk about hummus. Watch out.
I won't say it.
Oh, please do. You're the hummus sapien.
Yes, it's really like the way I see legumes is this is an advanced food. If you're on a steep curve of a healing journey, it's one that you sort of want to eat a bit later on in the journey. But they're so delicious.
They're filling and cheap.
Yeah, that's right. They are filling, delicious, cheap. And they have to be prepared really, really well. So soaking them for 48 hours, changing it in the water if you can during that process to get rid of all the anti-nutrients and the lectins and the phytic acid that comes out into the water is a really good idea. But if I'm struggling with leaky gut, I would make them a very occasional food. Later on, they become part of a whole food diet. They add so much variety and texture and deliciousness and hummus into the diet. So it's a really good idea.
But you do when you're trying to heal the gut, your gut can't break down the disaccharides. It can't break down the long chain sugars, and legumes have that.
Yes,
those long chain sugars. So that's why you have to just wait until you can heal a bit, and then you can bring them back in.
Yeah, take it easy on the all these reproductive parts of the plants. They're difficult. They're difficult to eat.
Yeah. And before we go, let's just answer this one little one. What's the process of creating, testing, and writing your recipes? How do you decide which ones to include in your books or blog?
Oh.
Well,
let's hear your process.
We write down lots and lots of ideas on bits of paper, and then we throw them up in the air and we catch the ones that fall down and see what we decide to know.
Yes. Or what I do is I put like circles of produce around me, and I close my eyes, and wherever my hand lands, I have to do something productive.
That might be a good way to do it. Let's try that. Yeah. We might come up with some really awesome recipes.
Imagine. Chocolate and...
Maybe you have to spin around 3 times, and each time you point to something, and those 3 things have to go in one recipe.
Oh, my God. Jo and I, we put out recipes that we create for our home. So we never really try to create a recipe just for the sake of creating a recipe.
We don't say there's a hole in the market here, let's create a recipe for it. Actually, a really good example is yesterday's breakfast for me. I got up in the morning and there was only 6 eggs left for the whole family, and that is a disaster. And there was no bacon. There was just nothing in the fridge. And then I thought, okay, well, I've got to be a bit creative here. And I found an orange sweet potato, and I grated like about a quarter of that into the frying pan with some ghee and started sauteing that. I found 1 portobello mushroom in the fridge, so I sliced that up and added it, and was sauteing that. And then I whisked up the eggs with a bit of, I just whisked them up with salt and pepper. And when the sweet potato and mushroom it was starting to caramelize in the ghee, and it was just smelling beautiful. I poured the eggs in and just turned the heat way down and left it for 5 minutes to cook a bit on the bottom. And then I grated a bit of cheese over the top, not very much, just a bit. And then I popped it under the grill for 5 minutes. And it just made the best omelette, something so simple. And then I was like, yay, a new recipe. So for me, it's often, what's that saying? No, I can't remember the saying now. It's the one about where you've just got to make do with what you've got, but it's not that saying. It's another one. Anyway. It's when you have to sort of figure out what to do with, whatever you have, and that's how you make up recipes. Well, that's how I make them up.
Yeah, it's about the available ingredients. I went camping this weekend, and I had some grain-free pastry, my life-changing dough that we sell through Prime Alternative, and I had a camembert. And before that, I had sort of sauteed some mushrooms with a little bit of burnt butter and sage in the pan was sitting next to the fire. And then I got some of that pastry and I stuffed it with camembert cheese and I grilled it over the open fire. It was incredible. But then I was like, I'm not going to stop there. So I grabbed the pan that the mushrooms had sauteed in with the butter and the sage, and then heated that up and tossed the pastry in it and got all that buttery sage flavor, crispy outside of the camembert filled pastry, and that took it far to the next level. It was amazing.
Can I come camping with you? You sound like you make much better food than I do when I go camping.
I was so happy. I was cooking on fire for 48 hours. It was just constant.
See, this is why people need to come to your Fire Feast Fable thing, because it's going to be yummy.
Yes.
You're good at outdoor cooking.
Yes.
I remembered the saying, necessity is the mother of invention. That's what I was trying to think of.
Beautiful saying. I love it.
Yeah. So when you've just like got to scrounge through, or when I get a box of really odd vegetables and fruits and I'm like, oh, what do I do with this? That's when my best recipes happen, because I have to get creative. So yeah. Necessity is the mother of invention. So that's how we do it.
Often our best work is when there's almost nothing left in the pantry.
Right. And it keeps it simple as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Well, have a great weekend. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And Jo, great chatting to you. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. And if we missed your question, we'll try to get to it another week. Thank you so much for sending in some questions. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.